Alright, greetings and salutations. Welcome to Tanisha's Reading Corner podcast. I am your host, Tanisha. Tanisha's Reading podcast is dedicated to anyone who desires to make reading a daily habit as a form of self-care. To stay updated when a new podcast is uploaded, please subscribe to the channel. In addition, you can find me on Instagram at Tanisha's Reading Corner for many book recommendations and tips and tricks on how to keep reading a daily habit. Let's dive into today's episode. All right, here we are again. I thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. But before we continue, please hit the subscribe button here on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Also, some new news. We are uploading some podcast episodes to YouTube. So all the episodes will be available shortly. Having some technical difficulty there, but they should be uploaded soon. So please also not only subscribe, but share with family and friends. Help the podcast grow. I thank you so much to all who have tuned in to this week's episode. So this week's episode is another book review on Love Radio by Ebony Ladelle. Now, I heard about this book, I think it was on Good Morning America. They had stated that People magazine had named this book the book of the summer in 2022. Now, this is a debut novel for the author, who considers it a love letter to Detroit and all of the black rom-coms of the 80s and 90s. And you definitely get all elements of that in this book, in the writing as well. It is categorized as a young adult romance fiction written for ages of 12 through 18. So not a lot of spiciness in there, but the storyline and the overall dialoguing and just the overall character growth from beginning to end is something that people of all ages can really enjoy. So a quick synopsis. A local DJ in Detroit, DJ Prince, a high school student, falls in love with Danielle, a very ambitious but very troubled young lady who's oddly closed off, tries to convince her to fall in love with him after only 3 dates. Does he succeed? Does he fail? Well, before we continue again, hit that subscribe button for sharing family and friends. Again, I'm going to keep saying this throughout the episode because we're really trying to get those numbers up to get more people reading as a daily habit, as a form of self-care. So how the chapters are arranged is that each chapter is written from the point of view of either Danielle or Prince. And I love how they did that, because oftentimes you tend to get novels in this characters that are just written from one character's point of view, but to get both, you kind of get to see the inner dialoguing that's going on there. And so it's it's both for girls and for boys as well too. You get it from his perspective, you get it from her perspective as well. So the very first chapter is written from the point of view of Danielle, who is just very focused and dedicated to getting to school. She wants to be a writer. She's getting her college applications in, and so she's just focused on that. But for the past year, it's been very closed off. You kind of get a sense that something happened to her, and for some reason, she just doesn't want to talk about it. She's isolating herself from her friends and family. And so that's how we start off with Danielle. And then the very next chapter, we get Prince. Prince is a local DJ, like I said, who owns his very own Love Radio, hence the name of the book, that he gives out relationship advice. And the advice he gives is very good, very detailed. Honestly, I'm taking notes as well, too. And so he's coming out not only of a really bad relationship, but also he's dealing with his mother who has an illness. So he has to kind of step up and be the man of the house. Plus he has a disabled brother. So there's a lot going on with his life as well too. But even with all that, he still believes in the ideals of love. I mean, he has a radio dedicated to it. I mean, he's kind of the perfect book boyfriend for any girl. So hey, if to all the girls out there who are looking for a good book boyfriend, and by book boyfriend I mean a main character who is obviously either male or female, depending on what you're into, that you just absolutely, it's the ultimate romance hero, if you will. And that would be Prince. And of course, Prince, named after the late artist, same name, Prince. So how they first meet, which I think is adorable, in a library, of course. because Danielle is an avid reader, writer, loves to read, and so they first encounter each other, don't really like each other at first, and Danielle has some harsh words for him, and he has some harsh words back, and she feels guilty afterwards. So she does go to his house, drops off some books, and she kind of sees where he lives and understands where he's coming from, and so she's a little more sensitive to him after that, when he sees his mom, his kid brother, and she gains a lot more respect for him. He's different than all the other guys at school. Well, and so when he asks her out, she at first says no, because she says it's not into him like that. Well, first of all, let me take a step back. This part was super cute. They were originally going to hang out, but then she decides to cancel him at the last minute. Probably nerves, a little bit of anxiety there. So he answers back, well, let me come over and let me help you out. She tries to mix up the excuse up because she had braids in her hair at the time, so she needed to take her braids out. For all the black girls who understand, sometimes taking those braids out can take a very long time. And so this just made my heart flutter when he said this. He's like, well, let me come over and let me help you take your braids out. Ladies and gentlemen, that is love. That is love. Anyone who's willing to take a comb through your hair after your braids have been in for a while, that is love. Willing to grease your scalp, willing to comb out your hair, and still willing to look at you with a level of love and respect after you see you with your braids out, that is love. I'm telling you, that is sincere love. So she comes over to her home where her parents are and everything, obviously teenagers, and helps her take out her braids. And that's when he comes up with the idea of the 3 dates. And she was just like, what were you talking about? 3 dates and we're going to fall in love with each other? That's a very fairy tale type of situation there. And he's like, well, I'm not a fairy tale kind of guy. Prayer raising, of course, but yes. So she agrees. She agrees to the 3 dates. And so the first date is at a roller rink. Now, she loved to go skating previous to everything that happened, but it's a very cute date. They run into some old friends, but he's always just focused on her, making sure she's happy, having fun. And then the second date, now this was a really cute date. They meet up at a local library. He has this bookshop that she has been wanting to go see for a very long time. It wasn't open yet. They didn't have their grand opening, so he got kind of the backstage pass to go get in with, because his uncle was friends with the owner. So they were able to kind of have a brief opening even for the grand opening. So that really impressed her. And all throughout the bookstore, he had gifts set up and the book aisles of some of her favorite authors. And then they had a quick little dinner, which again, I think that is just super cute, super sweet and everything. And then the third date, mind you, we're in Detroit, Michigan. So this date actually Danielle sets up. Twist there. She and her father is friends with a local business owner and everything. And so they got a backstage pass to Motown Records. Motown Records is an American record label that was founded by Berry Gordy in 1950s. It was one of the first ever black-owned record labels in around that time. They spawned out some of the biggest hits of the era. This was the group of the Supremes. They were on becoming known as Diana Ross Supremes, the Temptations, Gladys Knight and the Pips, all those old town classic favorites. This was the record label. And so in Detroit to this day, there is still that, I think it's like a house type area where you can kind of go in and see where all the greats made their records. And that was their third date. I mean, talk about romantic. I mean, he's a DJ. This has to be heaven on earth for him to be able to experience this as well, too. So by that third date, you really start to see her warming up to him. You really start to see how they impact each other. But as I said in the beginning of the episode, something happened to her that made her super closed off. But through her relationship with him, she starts to open up again. She starts hanging out with her friends again. And even Rashida, one of her friends that she kind of stepped away from, she was like, he's changing you in the best way possible. You need to stick with him. So again, this is a trigger warning episode as well too. There was something that happened where a situation went too far and she was almost violated by someone that she once perceived to be a friend. And she was put in this situation by someone that she once considered to be a friend. So, mind you, she did manage to get away, but still, that's a scar that will stick with you if you don't open up and get some healing. And so there's also that in the book as well too, but also one of the key elements of this book, not just about young romance, about, young adults coming of age and all that. There's great themes about that as well too. Obviously love is a major theme, means in the title, but also a major theme is self-love. And that's what I really love about these romance novels coming out now, is that they really focus on that as well too. How, while love for other human beings is important, self-love is just as important, and sometimes we tend to neglect that as well too. There is this amazing quote that I had to share with you, so one moment. There's this really beautiful quote that Ladelle has in this book. But before I give you that quote, I'm just going to take a quick little break. I'm going to do a quick little product promotion, and then we'll be right back, so stay tuned. Ladies of the podcast, did you know that your period is not supposed to hurt? Periods are normal, but the pain should not be. Inflammation occurs naturally on your cycle, but painful periods indicate that the inflammation is higher than it should be. That's where Semaine supplements come in. Semaine PMS supplements comes packed with 9 superpowered plant extracts and minerals. Semaine will not only help to lower your pain levels, but to also support your body naturally from cycle to cycle. For more information, go to their website at Semaine, SEMAINE health.com. Also follow them on Instagram at Semaine Health. Also, listeners of the podcast, when you find a supplement that you like to use, your promo code Tanisha's Reading Corner to get 20% off your first bottle. Again, the promo code Tanisha's Reading Corner to get 20% off your first bottle. Now, let's get back into the episode. Thank you again for coming back after that quick little promotional timeout. Commercial, there we go. Oh my goodness. I total brain fart, but I thank you for coming back. And before we continue again, hit that subscribe button if you haven't. Goodness, I am out of all those words. So sorry. Hit that subscribe button on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this podcast, so that way you are notified when a new episode is uploaded. Share with family and friends. Also, please leave a review. That really helps the channel to grow and get more people reading. Let's dive back in. So before the commercial, I had stated that there is this quote that just really spoke to me, and I think really helps to summarize what this book is really all about. And it's actually on page 224 to 225. It's a long one. And essentially, she's coming up with this essay for her college admission. And so she's writing letters to some of her favorite authors. And the author that she writes to is Bell Hooks, black female feminist. And a Woman is one of my favorites of hers. So it goes like this. Dear Belle, I am normally a fiction and memoir reader. Letting an author's imaginary or real-life struggles consume me. There's imagery, there's symbolism, there's all these things that high school students run away from in English class, but are the very things I adore. Maybe part of it is I haven't lived long enough, as my great aunt would say, and maybe there's some truth to that, because here I am, taking the very advice I gave Prince and applying it to myself, reading a book about love. Not just any book, though, yours. And it's changed me already. I picked All About Love, expecting to read a self-help book on how to become a feminist and fall in love. How to maintain my womanist ideas while committing to a person. What I got was a book that takes me on a journey of self-love. How self-love cannot flourish in isolation. And how I must give myself the love I dream of receiving. That in healing from whatever hurt I experienced, whatever has caused me to retreat, nothing will change unless I commit to the change. It's becoming clear Prince is wanting me to like him more and more. But you taught me there's no loving him without loving me. And there's no loving me without shutting down the negative voices in my head and replacing them with positive affirmations. So beginning today, I affirm myself by saying I am love. And regardless of what happens with Prince, with any of my friends, I know that I am deserving of it and that true love will find me because I am finding it within myself. Danny. That was a lot. But yes, that stopped me on my tracks. I don't think I got any sleep actually because I'm a nighttime reader. That, wow. Honestly, I went and got that book actually too, All About Love. So that'll be my next read as well too. But yes, that is so beautiful how when she says that as much as she really likes Prince, she has to first love herself before she can engage into any relationship. I wish more people understood that. That reality is that before you can fully love anyone else, you have to first love yourself and fill your cup up. And once that cup is full, anything else that comes out of it, that's for everyone else. But you can't be who you need to be for them if you're not whole. And so she realizes that. And actually, there's a part in the book where they do kind of break up for a little bit because she needs to get some self-discovery in that as well, too. She goes to therapy, she gets some help, and by the end of the book, they do come back together. And so one of my final quotes of the book that I just really love, and when she tells Prince that she's really feeling about him, in typical Danny way. Danny is her nickname, but Danielle is her real name. I pause. Okay. Pause. Don't ever think I fell for you or fell over you. I didn't fall in love. I rose in it. I saw you and made up my mind. My mind. I made up my mind to follow you too. I recite. This is from Danielle's point of view. He pulls away and looks at me, grinning super hard, his eyes squinting from the water droplets cascading down his face. I like that. You penned those bars. I wish, I reply. Maybe one day I'll write something half as good as that. It's Toni Morrison. Tony be knowin', is all he says as he pulls me closer again, our lips locking to a soft, tender rhythm. It's as if the sprinklers washed away any doubts we had about our love for one another. For the crazy year ahead, him in Detroit and me in New York City. This time we let the whistle of the trees and the humming of the birds be our melody as we lock lips and dance. Our clothes drenched, our hair soaked, our face dripping, us in each other's arms never letting go. He's right, she does. By she does, he means Toni Morrison. Another great author as well, too. Song of Solomon is one of my favorites of hers as well. So also you get a lot of female black authors throughout the book as well. So again, imagery, everything. It's just everything. It's a phenomenal debut novel. It really gets to the heart of what it means to not only love other people, but love yourself, love not just a potential partner, but also your friends, also your family, and letting people in. For those of us natural introverts, it's kind of hard to let people in, especially when we're experiencing pain, because we don't feel like people can understand or know where we're coming from. As a natural introvert, I like to stay within my comfort zone. It's what I'm known for, it's what I do, this is who I am. But oftentimes you can become stifled and you become, well, a good metaphor with this would be like a plant. Oftentimes with plants, you know, if they stay too long in one pot, they can start to wither and die. Not because you're not planting it, not because you're not watering it, but because the roots have outgrown the pot, and so you need to move it to another pot in order for it to grow even further. Same thing can be said with people as well too. In order for you to grow and become who you need to be, and become the universe, God, whoever you believe in, wants you to be, you gotta step out of your comfort zone into that area of the unknown. But on the other side there's a sense of fear, because like, what if it doesn't work out? What if it goes bad? But then it goes back to that self-love, and a part of self-love is trusting yourself. Trusting yourself that you know what to do when you are put in those situations. And on the opposite of that stepping out of that fear is growth. And that's where we all need to be, or deserve to be. And growth not just in our careers, but also in our family relationships, and also in love as well too. We need to grow. So, as As always, I like to end each podcast episode with a quote, and this quote will come from... So today's quote comes from David Viscott, and it reads, "To love and be loved is to feel the sun from both sides." And I leave you with that. And I also want to thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Tanisha's Reading Corner podcast. Again, subscribe to the channel here on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Also look us up on YouTube as well. We'll have some more videos posted. And please go to www.tanishasreadingcorner.com to stay up to date when a new episode is uploaded. And also follow me on Instagram at Tanisha's Reading Corner for tips on how to keep reading a daily habit as a form of self-care. Until next time, I thank you all for tuning in. I wish you all good wellness and good reading.